Welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. The air was thick with the scent of jollof rice and the hum of celebration. Fairy lights twinkled above the open courtyard where Amaka and Chuka's wedding unfolded in a riot of color and music. Amaka, radiant in her coral-embroidered gelly and gold bangles, twirled in Chuka's arms, her laughter like a melody over the upbeat Afrobeat tunes. Guests clapped, their wrappers and agbadas swaying as they danced. It was a day of joy in Lagos, a union that felt like destiny. Amaka's eyes sparkled as she caught Chuka's gaze. He was handsome, his tailored kaftan hugging his broad shoulders, his smile wide and warm. "You're my forever, Amaka," he whispered, pulling her close during their slow dance. Her heart swelled. She believed him. But in the corner of the courtyard, under the shade of a mango tree, Chuka's mother, Mama and Chuka, stood with her arms crossed, her lips pursed. Her friend, Auntie Ifeoma, leaned in, her voice low but sharp. "Nkechi, she's beautiful, yes, but beauty doesn't bear children. Let's see if this city girl can give us a lineage." Mama Nkechi's eyes narrowed, her gold earrings glinting in the evening light. "If she cannot, we will find someone who can. The Okoye name will not die." Amaka, oblivious to the whispers, tossed her bouquet into the crowd, laughing as her cousins scrambled to catch it. But as the night wore on, she felt a strange chill, a fleeting shadow over her joy. She brushed it off, chalking it up to wedding jitters. After all, she had Chuka, her love, her home. What could go wrong? As the last guests departed, Amaka stood at the edge of the courtyard, her hand in Chuka's. "We did it," she whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. "Yes," he said, but his voice was distant, his eyes flickering toward his mother's retreating figure. "We did." 3 years later, the glow of the wedding had faded, replaced by a quiet ache in Amaka's heart. Their modest 2-bedroom flat in Ikeja, once filled with laughter, now echoed with unspoken tension. The walls, adorned with framed wedding photos, seemed to mock her. Every month, she prayed for good news. Every month, her body betrayed her. Amaka sat on the edge of their bed, clutching a negative pregnancy test. Her eyes stung with unshed tears. Chuka was at work, his accounting job keeping him late again. She hadn't told him about this test. She couldn't bear the pity in his eyes anymore. The door creaked open, and Chuka stepped in, loosening his tie. "Amaka, you're still up." She hid the test under the pillow, forcing a smile. "Just thinking." He sat beside her, his hand hovering before resting on her shoulder. "We'll be fine. The doctor said there's still hope." "Hope," she echoed, her voice hollow. "Chuka, it's been 3 years. Your mother." "Don't bring her into this," he snapped, then softened. "She's just worried, that's all." But Mama Nkechi's worry was a storm brewing. At a family dinner the previous week, she'd cornered Amaka in the kitchen, her voice dripping with venom. "Amaka, a woman's worth is in her womb. You're not trying hard enough. Maybe city life has cursed you." Amaka had stood frozen, the ladle in her hand trembling. "Mama, we're doing everything we can." "The doctors." "Doctors." Mama Nkechi scoffed, her wrapper rustling as she waved a dismissive hand. "City doctors know nothing. Back in the village, we had herbs, prayers, solutions. You need to do more." Now, alone in their bedroom, Amaka's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to tell Chuka how his mother's words cut deeper than any knife. But she stayed silent, the weight of her empty womb heavier than ever. The next day, Amaka visited Dr. Aisha at the clinic, her last shred of hope. "Amaka," Dr. Aisha said, adjusting her glasses, "your tests are normal. You're healthy. Sometimes it's just time." "Time," Amaka whispered, staring at the floor. "I don't have time." As she left the clinic, her phone buzzed. A text from Mama Nkechi. "Come to the family meeting tomorrow. We need to talk." The Okoye family compound in Surulere buzzed with tension. Relatives filled the living room, their voices a mix of chatter and laughter, but Amaka felt like an outsider. She sat beside Chuka, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her Ankara dress suddenly feeling too tight. Mama Nkechi stood, commanding attention. "My family, we are here because the Okoye name is at stake. 3 years, and no child. We cannot sit and watch our lineage fade. Amaka's stomach churned. She glanced at Chuka, expecting him to defend her. He stared at his feet. Chuka is my only son, Mama Nkechi continued, her voice rising. If Amaka cannot give us a child, we must find a solution. In the village, we know what to do. We bring a real woman, one whose womb is not cursed by city life. Gasps rippled through the room. Amaka's aunt, Auntie Chioma, spoke up. Nkechi, this is unfair. Amaka is trying. You can't blame her. Trying is not enough. Mama Nkechi snapped. The gods have spoken. We need a second wife. Amaka's heart stopped. She turned to Chuka, her voice barely a whisper. Chuka, say something. He cleared his throat, his eyes avoiding hers. Mama, let's not rush. We're still trying. Trying. Mama Nkechi laughed bitterly. 3 years is not trying. It's failure. The room spun. Amaka stood, her voice trembling but firm. I am not a failure. I am your son's wife. Mama Nkechi's eyes gleamed. For now. That night, Amaka lay awake, Chuka's snores beside her. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. A second wife. The thought was a knife in her chest. She wanted to fight, to scream, but a part of her wondered if Mama Nkechi was right. Was she cursed? As dawn broke, Chuka reached for her hand. Amaka, I won't let her do this. I promise. But his promise felt fragile, like a thread about to snap. The knock came at dawn, a sharp rap that startled Amaka from her restless sleep. She shuffled to the door, her wrapper loosely tied, expecting a neighbor. Instead, a young woman stood there, her eyes downcast, a worn suitcase at her feet. She was petite, with smooth ebony skin and a shy smile, her village-style wrapper vibrant against the urban backdrop. I'm Ngozi, she said softly, her voice barely audible. Mama Nkechi sent me. Amaka's heart sank. Before she could speak, Mama Nkechi appeared behind Ngozi, her smile triumphant. Amaka, meet your co-wife. Ngozi is here to save our family. Chuka emerged from the bedroom, his eyes wide. Mama, what is this? This, Mama Nkechi said, ushering Ngozi inside, is the answer to our prayers. Ngozi is fertile, from good stock in the village. She will give us children. Amaka's knees buckled. She gripped the doorframe, her voice a whisper. Chuka, you knew? He shook his head, but his hesitation told a different story. I didn't agree to this. Didn't agree? Mama Nkechi laughed. You didn't disagree either. Ngozi stood silently, her eyes fixed on the floor. Amaka wanted to hate her, but the girl looked as trapped as she felt. Ngozi, Amaka said, her voice steady despite the storm inside, why are you here? Ngozi's eyes flickered up, filled with fear. I had no choice. Mama Nkechi said it's my duty. Duty, Amaka echoed, her voice breaking. She turned to Chuka. And what's your duty, Chuka? To me. He reached for her, but she stepped back. Amaka, please. No, she said, tears streaming down her face. You let this happen. That night, Amaka lay on the couch, unable to face the bedroom where Ngozi now slept. The house felt like a prison, her marriage a lie. She clutched her phone, scrolling through old wedding photos, each one a reminder of a love that was slipping away. The days blurred into a nightmare. Ngozi's presence was a constant wound. Amaka found her in the kitchen, humming as she cooked yam porridge, her hands deft with a knife. I thought Chuka liked this, Ngozi said, her voice soft but cutting. Mama said it's his favorite. Amaka's grip tightened on the counter. This is my kitchen. Ngozi's eyes widened, and she stepped back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Save it, Amaka snapped, storming out. But the kitchen wasn't the only thing Ngozi invaded. Amaka found her shawl draped over the couch, her slippers by the bed, her laughter echoing through the walls. Each moment chipped away at Amaka's identity. One evening, Amaka returned from the market to find Ngozi in their bedroom, folding Chuka's clothes. What are you doing? Amaka demanded, her voice shaking. Ngozi flinched. Mama Nkechi said I should take care of Chuka. He's my husband too. Amaka's vision blurred with rage. "Get out!" Ngozi scurried away, but the damage was done. That night, Amaka confronted Chuka. "She's in our bedroom, Chuka." "Our bed? How could you let this happen?" He rubbed his temples, his voice weary. "Amaka, I'm trying to keep the peace. Mama is relentless." "Peace?" Amaka laughed bitterly. "You call this peace? I'm invisible in my own home." Chuka reached for her, but she pulled away. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Then try harder," she said, her voice cold. "Because I won't live like this." The next morning, Amaka woke to whispers outside the window. Neighbors gathered, their voices carrying. "Poor Amaka, replaced by a village girl," one said. "At least Ngozi will give them a child." Amaka's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to tell them she was more than her womb. But the whispers followed her, a chorus of judgment that drowned out her own voice. That evening, she sat alone on the balcony, staring at the Lego skyline. Her phone buzzed, a message from her friend, Kemi. "You don't deserve this, Amaka. Come stay with me." Amaka's fingers hovered over the reply. Leaving would mean admitting defeat, but staying felt like dying. She closed her eyes, the weight of her choices pressing down. The Lego sun beat down on the Okoye compound, but inside Amaka's heart, a storm raged. 6 months had passed since Ngozi's arrival, and the house was no longer a home but a battlefield of silences and stolen glances. Amaka moved through her days like a ghost, her laughter replaced by a hollow ache. The neighbors' whispers had grown louder, their pity sharper, and now, a new blow landed. Ngozi was pregnant. The announcement came at a family gathering, the air thick with the scent of egusi stew and the hum of relatives. Mama Nkechi stood at the center of the living room, her voice booming with pride. "Our prayers have been answered. Ngozi carries the future of the Okoye name." Cheers erupted. Chuka forced a smile, his eyes avoiding Amaka's. Ngozi sat demurely, her hands resting on her barely visible bump, her shy smile a dagger in Amaka's chest. Amaka sat at the edge of the room, her Ankara dress feeling like a shroud. She wanted to scream, to run, but her feet stayed rooted, her face a mask of composure. Later, as she cleared plates in the kitchen, her cousin Kemi pulled her aside. "Amaka, you don't have to stay here. This is torture." Amaka's hands trembled as she stacked a plate. "Where do I go, Kemi? This is my marriage." "A marriage?" Kemi's voice was sharp. "This isn't a marriage anymore. It's a prison." Amaka's eyes stung, but she shook her head. "I can't give up. Not yet." That night, alone in the guest room, her new prison since Ngozi had taken the master bedroom, Amaka heard the neighbors through the thin walls. "At least now the family has hope," one said. "Poor Amaka," she tried, "but Ngozi is the real wife." Amaka curled into a ball, tears soaking her pillow. The seed of jealousy took root, not just for Ngozi's pregnancy but for the life she'd lost, the love, the home, the future she'd dreamed of. She clutched her phone, her thumb hovering over Kemi's number. Maybe she's right, she thought. But leaving felt like letting Mama Nkechi win. As dawn broke, Amaka stared at the ceiling, her resolve hardening. "I won't break. Not yet." Amaka sat in Dr. Aisha's office, the sterile scent of antiseptic doing little to calm her nerves. She'd come alone, without telling Chuka, driven by a desperate need for answers. The clinic was a quiet refuge from the chaos of home, its white walls a blank canvas for her fading hopes. Dr. Aisha slid a folder across the desk, her expression unreadable. "Amaka, I have your results." "And Chuka's." Amaka's heart skipped. "Chuka's? I didn't." "I know," Dr. Aisha said, her voice gentle but firm. "You gave me his sample last year, remember? For the fertility panel. I retested everything." Amaka's hands shook as she opened the folder. The words blurred before her eyes. Female fertility, normal. Male sperm count, critically low. Her breath caught. "You mean, it's not me?" Dr. Aisha nodded. "You're perfectly capable of conceiving, Amaka. Chuka's the one with the issue. His sperm count is too low to sustain a pregnancy without medical intervention." Amaka's mind reeled. 3 years of blame, of Mama Nkechi's taunts, of her own self-doubt, all for nothing. She wasn't cursed. She wasn't barren. But then, how was Ngozi pregnant? She drove home in a daze, the Lagos traffic a blur of horns and heat. When she walked into the house, Mama Nkechi was in the living room, instructing Ngozi on how to fold Chuka's clothes. "Amaka," Mama Nkechi said, her tone dripping with disdain, "where have you been?" "A wife's place is at home." Amaka's voice was steady, her anger a quiet fire. "I was at the doctor's, Mama. And I have news." Mama Nkechi's eyes narrowed. "News? Unless it's a child, it's useless." Amaka held up the folder, her hands steady now. "It's about Chuka. He's the one who can't have children. Not me." The room fell silent. Ngozi's hands froze mid-fold, her eyes wide. Mama Nkechi laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Lies. City doctors and their nonsense. My son is strong." "Is he?" Amaka said, her voice cutting. "Then explain Ngozi's pregnancy." Mama Nkechi's face darkened, but she said nothing. Ngozi's gaze dropped to the floor, her silence louder than words. Amaka's heart pounded. Something was wrong, very wrong. That night, she lay awake, the folder clutched to her chest. If Chuka can't have children, whose baby is Ngozi carrying? The moon hung low over Lagos, casting shadows through the slats of Amaka's window. She hadn't slept, her mind racing with the doctor's revelation. Chuka's low sperm count was a truth she couldn't unlearn, and Ngozi's pregnancy was a puzzle she needed to solve. She felt like a detective in her own home, watching, listening, waiting for a crack in the facade. At midnight, she heard soft footsteps. Peering through the guest room door, she saw Ngozi slip out of the house, her wrapper pulled tight against the night chill. Curiosity overpowered caution. Amaka grabbed her phone and followed, keeping her distance as Ngozi hurried down the quiet street. Ngozi stopped at a small bar on the edge of the neighborhood, its neon sign flickering. A man waited in the shadows, tall and lean, his face obscured by a cap. Amaka crouched behind a parked car, her heart pounding as she strained to hear. "Ngozi, you're late," the man said, his voice low but sharp. "Is it done?" Ngozi's voice trembled. "Yes, but nobody must know the baby isn't Chuka's. If they find out, I'm finished." Amaka's blood ran cold. She fumbled with her phone, hitting record just as the man spoke again. "They won't. Mama Nkechi thinks it's her son's. Keep it that way." Ngozi nodded, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't want this, Amaka. You and Mama Nkechi forced me." "Forced you?" Amaka laughed softly. "You wanted out of that village as much as I did. This was our deal." Amaka's hands shook as the recording captured every word. Ngozi wasn't just a pawn, she was part of a lie. But who was Amaka? And how deep did Mama Nkechi's involvement go? She slipped back home, her mind a whirlwind. In the guest room, she played the recording, the voices crackling through her earphones. "Nobody must know the baby isn't Chuka's." The words echoed, each one a nail in the coffin of her marriage. By dawn, Amaka's resolve hardened. She copied the recording to her cloud drive, her fingers trembling with purpose. She wouldn't confront Ngozi, not yet. She needed Chuka to hear the truth first. Amaka waited for the right moment, her phone burning a hole in her pocket. The house was quiet, Ngozi at the market and Mama Nkechi at a church meeting. Chuka sat in the living room, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the storm about to break. "Chuka, we need to talk," Amaka said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. He looked up, his brow furrowing. "What now, Amaka?" "I'm tired." She sat across from him, her hands clasped to keep them from shaking. "This isn't about me. It's about Ngozi. And her baby." His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" She pulled out her phone, her finger hovering over the play button. "Listen to this." The recording filled the room, Ngozi's voice clear and damning. "Nobody must know the baby isn't Chuka's." Amaka's voice followed, cold and calculated. Chuka's face paled, his phone slipping from his hand. "Amaka, where did you get this?" His voice was a whisper, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I followed her last night," Amaka said, her voice breaking. "She met a man named Amaka. They planned this, Chuka. The baby isn't yours. Chuka stood, his hands clenched into fists. You're lying. You're jealous. Jealous. Amaka's voice rose, her pain spilling over. I've been called barren, cursed, replaced, all for you. And now I find out your precious second wife is lying to you, and you call me jealous. Chuka's face twisted, his anger erupting. You don't get to do this, Amaka. You don't get to ruin everything. Before she could react, his hand shot out, striking her across the cheek. The slap echoed, sharp and final. Amaka stumbled back, her hand to her face, tears streaming down. You hit me, she whispered, her voice breaking. Chuka froze, his eyes wide with regret. Amaka, No, she grabbed her bag, her vision blurred with tears. I'm done. She stumbled out into the Lagos night, the city's noise swallowing her sobs. Her phone buzzed, Kemi's name on the screen. Come to me, the message read. Amaka clutched her bag, the recording her only weapon, and walked away from the house that was no longer hers. Amaka sat on Kemi's couch, her cheeks still stinging from Chuka's slap. Kemi pressed a cold cloth to her face, her voice fierce. He hit you, Amaka. That's not love. That's not a husband. Amaka stared at the floor, her mind a tangle of pain and rage. I thought he'd believe me. I thought he'd fight for us. Kemi knelt before her, her eyes blazing. He made his choice. Now you make yours. Amaka's phone sat on the coffee table, the recording a silent accusation. She wanted to send it to Mom Nkechi, to expose Ngozi, but something held her back. Revenge felt hollow when her heart was already shattered. The next morning, Kemi dragged her to a cafe, insisting she needed air. As they sipped Zobo, Kemi leaned in. You're stronger than this, Amaka. You're not just Chuka's wife. You're Amaka Nwosu, the woman who organized her entire secondary school reunion single-handedly. Remember her. Amaka managed a small smile. That feels like another lifetime. Then make a new one, Kemi said. There's a job opening at my friend's NGO. They help women with fertility issues. You'd be perfect. Amaka hesitated, the weight of her old life pressing down. But Kemi's words sparked something, a flicker of purpose. I'll think about it, she said. That afternoon, she visited the NGO, a small office buzzing with warmth and purpose. The director, a kind-eyed woman named Ife, welcomed her. We need someone who understands pain, Ife said. Someone who can inspire. Amaka's throat tightened. I understand pain. She took the job, throwing herself into it. Days turned into weeks, and Amaka found solace in helping others, women like her, carrying the weight of society's judgment. She began speaking at support groups, her voice growing stronger with each story she shared. You are not your womb, she told a room of tearful women. You are enough. But at night, alone in Kemi's spare room, she replayed the recording, Ngozi's voice haunting her. Nobody must know. She hadn't decided what to do with it, but the truth was a fire in her chest, waiting to burn. One evening, her phone buzzed, a text from Chuka. I'm sorry. Please come home. Amaka stared at the words, her heart torn. She typed a reply, then deleted it. Not yet, she thought. Not until I'm whole. The Lagos skyline glittered beyond Kemi's apartment window, a reminder of the world Amaka was reclaiming. 6 months had passed since she'd left Chuka's house, her cheeks still stinging in memory of his slap. The pain had faded, but the recording of Ngozi's confession burned in her cloud drive, a weapon she hadn't yet used. She wasn't ready, not until she was whole. Kemi's apartment had become a sanctuary, its walls adorned with vibrant art and the scent of incense calming Amaka's restless heart. She'd taken the job at the Women's Hope NGO, a small office in Yaba where she counseled women battling infertility. Each story she heard mirrored her own, shame, blame, and silent strength. Amaka found purpose in their tears, her voice growing steadier with every speech she gave. One afternoon, at a support group meeting, Amaka stood before a room of women, her Ankara blouse vibrant against her glowing skin. They call us barren, she said, her voice clear and commanding. But we are not empty. We are rivers, waiting for the rain. The women clapped, some wiping tears, others nodding fiercely. After the session, a young woman named Blessing approached her, eyes shining. Auntie Amaka, Your words, they make me feel seen. Amaka smiled, her heart swelling. You are seen, blessing. You're enough. Later, at a local cafe, Kemi raised a glass of Zobo. To Amaka Nwosu, the city's newest motivational queen. Amaka laughed, a sound she hadn't heard in months. Queen, I'm just surviving. Surviving. Kemi scoffed. You're thriving. Look at you, new job, new purpose. Chuka doesn't deserve you. The mention of Chuka dimmed Amaka's smile. His texts had stopped weeks ago, but the weight of their broken marriage lingered. She still hadn't decided what to do with Ngozi's recording. Exposing the truth felt like revenge, but keeping it felt like surrender. That evening, Amaka volunteered at a fertility clinic event, handing out flyers and sharing her story. A doctor approached her, his smile warm. You're Amaka, right? I'm Dr. Tund. Your speech was powerful. Amaka blushed, unaccustomed to praise. Thank you. I just want to help. You're doing more than that, he said, his eyes kind. You're giving hope. As she walked home, Dr. Tund's words echoed in her mind. For the first time in years, Amaka felt like she was building something that was hers alone. The Okoye compound buzzed with anticipation. Ngozi's baby was due any day, and Mom and Kechi had turned the house into a shrine of celebration. Garlands hung from the walls, and neighbors gathered daily, their chatter filled with hope for the Okoye heir. But Amaka, miles away in her new life, heard whispers of trouble through Kemi's network. One evening, Kemi burst into the apartment, her eyes wide. Amaka, you won't believe this. Ngozi had the baby, a boy. But people are talking. Amaka's heart skipped. Talking about what? Kemi leaned in, her voice low. The baby doesn't look like Chuka. His eyes, his nose, they're saying he looks like someone else. Amaka's mind flashed to the recording. Nobody must know the baby isn't Chuka's. She gripped the edge of the couch, her pulse racing. Who's saying this? Neighbors, aunties, even Mom and Kechi's friends, Kemi said. They're calling the baby Emeka's shadow. Emeka, Amaka whispered, the name a confirmation of her suspicions. The man from the bar, the one Ngozi had met in secret. She pulled out her phone, the recording still there, a ticking bomb. Kemi noticed her expression. You're thinking about it, aren't you? Sending that recording. Amaka shook her head. Not yet. I need to be sure. The next day, Amaka visited the Okoye compound, uninvited, her heart pounding. She hadn't been back since the night she left. The gate creaked as she entered, and neighbors' eyes followed her, their whispers a low hum. Inside, Mom and Kechi sat cradling the baby, her smile fading at the sight of Amaka. What are you doing here? Mama and Kechi snapped, clutching the baby tighter. I came to see the child, Amaka said, her voice calm but firm. She stepped closer, her eyes locking on the baby's face. The rumors were true. His features were sharp, his eyes a striking hazel, nothing like Chuka's dark brown gaze. Ngozi stood in the corner, her hands trembling. Amaka, please. Amaka's gaze softened, but her resolve didn't waver. Congratulations, Ngozi. He's beautiful. As she left, the neighbors' whispers grew louder. Did you see her? Amaka's back. She knows something. Amaka's heart raced. The truth was unraveling, and she held the key. Amaka sat in Kemi's apartment, the recording playing on a loop in her mind. The baby's face haunted her, those hazel eyes, so unlike Chuka's. She couldn't let the lie fester, not when it had cost her everything. But exposing Ngozi meant destroying Chuka's world, and a part of her still loved him, despite the pain. Kemi burst in, holding a small envelope. I did something. Don't be mad. Amaka frowned. What did you do? Kemi hesitated, then handed her the envelope. I got a DNA test. A friend at the hospital owed me a favor. I got a sample from the baby and Chuka. Amaka's eyes widened. Kemi, how? Don't ask, Kemi said, her voice firm. Just read it. With trembling hands, Amaka opened the envelope. The results were stark. 0% probability of paternity. Chuka was not the father. Her breath caught, the truth a weight she could no longer ignore. I'm sending this to Chuka, Amaka said, her voice steady for the first time in months. Anonymously. Kemi nodded. Do it. He needs to know. Amaka created a burner email, attached the DNA results, and hit send. Her heart pounded as the confirmation popped up. There was no going back now. The next day, she watched from afar as chaos unfolded at the Okoye compound. Chuka's car screeched into the driveway, his face a mask of fury. Neighbors gathered, their whispers now a roar. Amaka stayed hidden, her phone buzzing with Kemi's updates. Chuka's confronting Ngozi. It's bad. Amaka's chest tightened. She'd wanted the truth to hurt, but seeing Chuka's pain stirred something in her, guilt, or maybe the ghost of love. She drove to the compound, unable to stay away. As she approached, she heard Chuka's voice, raw and broken. Ngozi, whose child is this? Ngozi's sobs echoed through the open window. Chuka, I'm sorry. Sorry. Chuka roared. You lied to me. To my family. Amaka stood frozen, the DNA results burning in her mind. She'd set this in motion, but what came next? The naming ceremony was meant to be a celebration, a vibrant affair with drummers, dancers, and a feast of pounded yam and vegetable stew. The Okoye compound overflowed with guests, their rappers and agbadas a kaleidoscope of color. But beneath the festivity, tension crackled like a storm about to break. Amaka watched from the edge of the crowd, uninvited but drawn by a need to see the truth unfold. Mama Nkechi stood at the center, holding the baby aloft, her voice booming. This is Chukwuma Okoye, the heir to our name. The crowd cheered, but Chuka's face was a mask of anguish. He'd received the DNA results days ago, and Amaka could see the weight of betrayal in his slumped shoulders. As the drummers began, Chuka stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise. Stop. The music faltered. All eyes turned to him. Mama Nkechi frowned. Chuka, what is this? He held up the DNA report, his hand shaking. This child is not mine. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mama Nkechi's face paled, her arms tightening around the baby. What nonsense is this? It's the truth, Chuka said, his voice breaking. Ngozi, tell them. Ngozi stood frozen, her eyes darting to the crowd. Chuka, please. Tell them, he roared. Ngozi's knees buckled, and she sank to the ground, sobbing. It's not his. I was desperate. Mama Nkechi made me. Lies. Mama Nkechi shrieked, her voice cracking. She staggered, clutching her chest, and collapsed, the baby slipping from her arms. Guests screamed, rushing to her side as Ngozi caught the child just in time. Amaka's heart raced. She hadn't expected this, a public unraveling. Mama Nkechi's pride shattered before the entire community. As medics tended to Mama Nkechi, Chuka turned to Amaka, his eyes filled with tears. Amaka, I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. She wanted to feel triumph, but all she felt was emptiness. You broke us, Chuka, she said softly. Sorry, can't fix that. As she turned to leave, the crowd's whispers followed her. Amaka knew, they said. She's the one who sent the truth. The Women's Hope NGO Gala was a splash of elegance, with fairy lights strung across a rooftop venue in Victoria Island. Amaka stood at the podium, her red gown hugging her curves, her confidence a beacon. She'd become a voice for the voiceless, her speeches going viral on social media with hashtags like #BarrenButBlessed and #WombWars. Tonight, she was being honored for her advocacy. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady, we are not defined by what we lack. We are defined by what we build, what we love, what we overcome. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing into the night. Amaka's eyes scanned the room, landing on familiar faces, Kemi, Dr. Tund, and, to her shock, Chuka, standing at the back. His suit was rumpled, his eyes hollow, but he clapped with the rest, his gaze locked on her. After the speech, he approached, his voice low. Amaka, you're incredible. I didn't know you had this in you. She crossed her arms, her heart guarded. You never looked, Chuka. He stepped closer, his voice breaking. I was wrong. About Ngozi, about my mother, about you. Please, come back. Let's try again. Amaka's breath caught. For a moment, she saw the man she'd married, the one who'd danced with her under fairy lights. But the memory of his slap, his silence, his betrayal, was stronger. She straightened, her voice firm. You don't plant seeds in poisoned soil, Chuka. I've built something new. I don't need you to grow. His face crumpled, but he nodded, stepping back. I'll always love you. Amaka turned away, her heart heavy but resolute. As she rejoined the gala, Dr. Tund approached, his smile warm. You were amazing up there. You're changing lives. She smiled, a flicker of hope igniting. Thank you, Tund, for seeing me. As the night ended, Amaka stood on the rooftop, the city sprawling before her. She was no longer the broken wife, the barren woman. She was Amaka Nwosu, the city queen, and her story was just beginning. The Lagos evening buzzed with life, the city's pulse matching the rhythm of Amaka's newfound confidence. The Women's Hope NGO Gala had cemented her as a beacon of resilience, her viral speeches echoing across social media with hashtags like #FromTearsToTriumph. She stood on Kemi's balcony, the skyline a canvas of possibility, her red gown from the gala still draped over a chair. Chuka's plea to come back lingered in her mind, but it felt like a distant echo, drowned out by the woman she was becoming. A knock at the door startled her. Kemi was at a work event, so Amaka opened it, expecting a neighbor. Instead, Chuka stood there, his eyes red-rimmed, his suit wrinkled. He held a small velvet box, his hands trembling. Amaka, he said, his voice raw, I know I don't deserve you. I know I broke us. But I'm asking for a chance to make it right. He dropped to one knee, opening the box to reveal a simple gold ring. Come back. Let's try again. I'll fight for you this time. Amaka's breath caught, her heart torn between the past and the present. The man before her was the one she'd loved, the one she'd danced with under fairy lights. But he was also the man who'd let his mother tear her apart, who'd raised his hand against her. She stepped back, her voice steady but cold. You don't plant seeds in poisoned soil, Chuka, she said, echoing her words from the gala. You had your chance. You chose your mother. You chose Ngozi. You chose silence. Chuka's face crumpled, tears streaming down. I was wrong, Amaka. I see that now. Please. She shook her head, her heart heavy but resolute. I've built something new. Something you can't break. Go home, Chuka. He stood, the ring box snapping shut. I'll always love you, he whispered, then turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the night. Amaka closed the door, her hands shaking. She wanted to feel triumph, but all she felt was the weight of a door closing on her past. She glanced at her phone, a message from Dr. Tund lighting up the screen. You were incredible tonight. Coffee tomorrow. A small smile tugged at her lips. Maybe, just maybe, her future was brighter than her past. The cafe in Ikoyi was a cozy haven, its walls lined with books and the air rich with the scent of coffee and chin-chin. Amaka sat across from Dr. Tund, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. He was different from Chuka, calm, steady, his eyes warm with a quiet strength. Over the past weeks, he'd become a constant at the fertility clinic, always there with a kind word or a shared laugh. You've changed lives, Amaka, Tund said, his voice earnest. The women at the clinic, they talk about you like you're their hero. Amaka blushed, stirring her tea. I'm just telling my truth. It helps them feel less alone. It's more than that, he said, leaning forward. You see them. Really see them. That's rare. She met his gaze, her heart fluttering. You see me too, Tund. Not many people do. He smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made her feel safe. I've seen you since that first speech. You're unstoppable, Amaka Nwosu. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing from work to dreams to the small joys of Lagos life, street food, traffic banter, the thrill of a good Nollywood film. For the first time in years, Amaka felt light, unburdened by the weight of her past. As they left the cafe, Tund paused under the streetlights. Amaka, I know you've been through a lot. But if you're open to it, I'd like to be part of your story. Her breath caught. She wanted to say yes, to let herself fall, but the scars of Chuka's betrayal held her back. Tund, I need time. He nodded, his eyes kind. I'm not going anywhere. That night, Amaka lay awake, Tund's words echoing in her mind. She thought of Chuka's proposal, his desperate plea, and compared it to Tun's quiet strength. One was a storm, the other, a steady river. She closed her eyes, a decision forming in her heart. The Women's Hope NGO office was abuzz with preparations for a new outreach program. Amaka stood at the whiteboard, sketching ideas, her energy infectious. She'd thrown herself into her work, her speeches now drawing crowds across Lagos. Social media buzzed with her story, her face plastered on Instagram reels with captions like, "From barren to blessed, Amaka's triumph." But that morning, a wave of dizziness hit her as she reached for a marker. The room spun, and she gripped the table, her vision blurring. Ife, the director, rushed to her side. "Amaka, are you okay?" I don't know," Amaka said, her voice weak. "Just dizzy." Ife drove her to the clinic, where Dr. Aisha, her longtime doctor, ran tests. Amaka sat in the sterile room, her mind racing. Was it stress? Exhaustion? The weight of her new life? Dr. Aisha returned, her face beaming. "Amaka, you're pregnant." The words hit like a thunderbolt. "Pregnant?" Amaka whispered, her hands trembling. "But how?" "Chuka." "Not Chuka," Dr. Aisha said gently. "You're healthy, Amaka. Always have been. Sometimes, the body needs time, or maybe, a miracle." Amaka's eyes filled with tears. A miracle. After years of blame, of being called barren, of losing her home, she was carrying life. She laughed, a sound of joy and disbelief, tears streaming down her face. She called Tund first, her voice shaking. "Tund, I'm pregnant." There was a pause, then his voice, warm and steady. "Amaka, that's incredible. I'm here, whatever you need." She hung up, her heart full. But as she left the clinic, a shadow crossed her mind. Chuka. He'd begged for a second chance, and now she carried the child he'd always wanted, but not with him. She pushed the thought away, focusing on the life inside her. That evening, Kemi threw an impromptu celebration, filling the apartment with laughter and zobo. "To Amaka," Kemi toasted, "the woman who proved them all wrong." Amaka raised her glass, her smile radiant. "To miracles." The church in Lekki was a vision of white roses and golden light, the air alive with gospel music and the chatter of guests. Amaka stood in a flowing white gown, her baby bump just visible, her face glowing with a peace she'd fought hard to claim. Dr. Tund stood beside her, his eyes never leaving hers, his hand steady in her own. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. Tund had been her rock, attending every doctor's appointment, cheering at every speech, loving her through her fears. When he proposed, quietly, over dinner at their favorite suya spot, she'd said yes without hesitation. This was love, not the storm of Chuka's betrayal but a steady flame that warmed her soul. The wedding was small but vibrant, streamed live on Instagram by Kemi, who declared herself the unofficial planner. Hashtag Amaka and Tund trended within hours, the comments flooded with heart emojis and praise. She rose from the ashes. This is what redemption looks like. As Amaka walked down the aisle, her eyes locked on Tund's, she felt whole. The priest's voice rang out, "Do you, Amaka Nwosu, take Tund Adebayo to be your husband?" "I do," she said, her voice clear, her heart full. Across Lagos, in a dimly lit room, Chuka sat alone, watching the livestream. His phone trembled in his hand as Amaka's smile filled the screen. Beside him, Mama Nkechi stared, her face a mask of regret. "We lost her," she whispered, her voice breaking. Chuka said nothing, his eyes wet. The baby Amaka carried, his dream, now someone else's reality, cut deeper than any wound. He closed the app, the screen going dark. At the reception, Amaka and Tund danced under fairy lights, their laughter echoing. Kemi leaned in, grinning. "You broke the internet, Amaka." "And their hearts." Amaka laughed, her hand resting on her bump. "Good. Let them see what they lost." Amaka stood on the balcony of her new home, a modest flat in Lekki she shared with Tund. The evening breeze carried the scent of the ocean, and the city sparkled below, a testament to her resilience. In her arms, she held her newborn daughter, Adiz, her tiny fingers curled around Amaka's thumb. Tund stood beside her, his arm around her waist, his smile a quiet promise. The past year had been a journey of healing. Amaka's speeches had grown into a movement, her NGO expanding to help thousands of women. Her story, now a viral sensation, inspired books, podcasts, and even a Nollywood script. Hashtag barren but blessed was more than a hashtag, it was her legacy. She thought of Chuka, of the pain he'd caused, and of Ngozi, who'd vanished after the naming ceremony scandal, her baby now with Emeka's family in the village. Mama Nkechi had retreated into silence, her pride shattered. Amaka felt no anger, only pity. They'd tried to break her, but she'd risen stronger. Tund kissed her forehead. "You're my miracle, Amaka." She smiled, looking at ease. "And she's ours." As the sun set, Amaka's voiceover filled the air, a narration for the YouTube series that had captivated millions. "They called me barren, but God called me chosen. They tried to dim my light, but I became the sun." The end.